So welcome back to another FiveStar Mortgages First Time Buyer Series podcast. And today we are joined by Marta again, founder, and Marta Rayner of Roy Vaughan Solicitors, who's coming to give us an overview on how a first time buyer interacts with a solicitor, what to look out for, and some top tips. So, Marta, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's okay. So first question is, tell us a bit about your career then. How did you get to the level you are now?
Of course. I'm qualified solicitors. I qualified over 10 years ago. It was a journey. I started in the criminal department.
Wow.
I loved the adrenaline. But I thought, okay, let's do something different.
You can have only so many middle of the night calls to come down to the station and rescue someone.
That was obviously one of the points I've considered for a future life. That would be very difficult to live with. But in terms of adrenaline level, I wanted similar stress.
Yeah.
So I joined property department.
Wow. So it's a bit
excitement of conveyancing, isn't it?
It's a bit like your love then, Marta, isn't it? Because you just love the fight of mortgages.
Absolutely, yes.
It is a stressful
joy working in property, isn't it? So.
Looking back, I wish I
So you guys, you wish you chose Wales.
People die.
Unbelievable. So you two obviously interact very closely with the first time buyers.
Yeah.
So what does a first time buyer, why do they need a solicitor then? What's the solicitor's involvement? What's your main role?
It's a legal requirement. 99.9% of our first-time buyers will require a mortgage. We represent the client, the buyer, and the lender. That's the legal obligation then to be legally represented. It minimizes the risk.
Yeah.
It helps the client through the journey of buying, trying to navigate them through this legal issues that they may encounter, but also try to buy the property that they can sell in the future.
That's a very good point. So checking that everything's tickety-da-boo, and there's not going to be any complications.
Correct.
When you sell.
And there are complications.
Yeah, I know. I remember when we bought a house, and we didn't have any certificates or anything, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to still buy this house?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're gonna," because we
take the risk, isn't it? Yeah, especially on the conservatory.
And sometimes it's just better to tell the client the truth, and sometimes the lender will not agree to buy on property with no documents. If there is a loft extension with no paperwork, the lender may say, "Well, let's do structural survey," or we're just not lending, or there are situations like that.
So it's because this is for first time buyers. So just to clarify what you've said, then it's if there's work done on the property, it's making sure there's certificates to demonstrate that was done properly.
That's right.
And then there's other things you do. So searches and surveys. So
of course, yes.
We quite often get.
People get mixed up, isn't it? They don't quite understand what searches are, what survey is. So, Marta, if you could just tell us, maybe just to clarify for everyone, what's what?
Clients often ask that question. We, as a solicitors, we order searches. Searches are a legal requirement. Lenders require 3 basic searches. That's a local authority search, environmental search, and a drainage search. Clients could decide on more searches. Sometimes they decide on do a chancel liability search or additional flat search. But the 3 basic ones I've just mentioned, they are the legal requirements. If you're a cash buyer, you don't have to carry out searches, but they are very useful. But these searches are reports obtained from third parties. So we contact local authorities for information, or these companies.
So what's in a local authority search then? What does it tell us?
We'll have a history of that property. We will see what planning permissions have been applied for, what the building regulations this property has. So let's say the first-time buyer will view the property and see that there is a new boiler installed, but our local search will disclose no information about the installation. that raised a concern.
Yeah.
How was this boiler installed? Does it have building regulation that hasn't been sent to the local authority, or it has been done by John next door?
Local authority search would also pick up if you're buying a house and the next door neighbour's got planning permission to put up a great big extension which is going to take away your garden light and that type of thing.
Sometimes local authorities disclose this information, but there is specific search if you're concerned about development in the neighborhood. So let's say you have a field behind your property, the property you are buying, and you want to discover whether there are any plans, you can. But we need to remember this planning needs to be current. If something comes up later, and the clients will call me in a year time and said, well, there is a new development going. We didn't know about this at the time. So everything can develop. But the local search can disclose some useful information about the neighborhood. It will provide information about the road outside the property.
Yeah.
They could be private roads or they could be adopted roads. So councils maintain roads.
So that's who's responsible for keeping the repair of the road.
That's right. Yeah. And if it's a private road, who maintains the road? Is there a contribution involved? So
So that's interesting because the buyers can actually, based on that information, they can make a decision whether they want to continue with the purchase or not, isn't it?
Yeah.
If there's something that maybe a estate agent has not pointed out.
The estate agent might not know, won't they?
Exactly. So
that's that point. But also, let's say there is a management company. From your point of view, you may need to disclose to the bank that there is additional maintenance charge because there is a private road.
Yeah. So it could have impact on your budget and overall lending decision potentially if there is a higher charges from a management company. So it
goes back into the affordability for the mortgage and could affect the mortgage application.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it?
Oh. But the survey, it's not arranged by solicitors. It's a client's choice, but we will always say to the client, carry out the building survey. Because we protect ourselves. The client needs to find out about the structure of the property. We have no information. What we received about the structure is sometimes the valuation report from the lender, but that's not a survey. Full building survey is arranged privately by the buyer.
Yeah.
Quite often the estate agents will have a list of recommended surveyors.
Yeah, Marta, I think you work with some surveyors. So when you're dealing with clients, what's your recommendation on surveys?
Well, it depends on the age of a property, but certainly anything that is not a new build, we would recommend the clients go and get at least home buyers report. So where could be a local solicitor or nationwide firm that covers that area. So someone who definitely got a local knowledge and the knowledge of properties. We always recommend as a brokers that clients get home buyers report as a minimum. As Marta said, mortgage valuations are not really deep enough. There is very minimum information. All you're probably going to get is what's the property worth, or are there any major structural damages? Well, you might not find out from a mortgage.
So you're both in agreement. So as most solicitors will recommend it, and you talk to people at the point of arranging the mortgage, what the options are.
Most brokers should recommend or would recommend a home buyer's report.
I completely agree. And I remember working years ago with first-time buyers buying a new build property, and I would always say, absolutely no point. No, there is always a point, especially with new builds. We know they could be faulty, even though they are protected by some warranties. Okay. Yes, I would recommend carrying out building survey to any properties. As Marta said, age of the property is important, but sometimes with not great developers around, it's just worth probably to check if you have any concerns.
Before exchange of contracts, which we'll come on to in a minute and explain what that means. So when a client's when a first-time buyer's looking at properties, I remember there used to be there's been a lot in the press about the difference between freehold and leasehold. So maybe we can just very quickly explain to anyone thinking of buying a house what they are and what you need to worry about.
Of course. The concept it's actually quite simple. When you buy a freehold, you buy a property and the land. When you buy a leasehold, you buy the property, but you do not own the land. And in the leasehold, you buy a use of that property, which is based on terms.
Yeah.
You can buy a use of that property for 99 years or 999 years, but you don't own the whole building. The building, the freehold, is owned by a leaseholder, or freeholder, we call it, landlord sometimes. Leasee is the buyer, and he owns the buyer owns the actual flat.
So you own you're responsible for the structure. No, not necessarily. You own the right to live there for a period of time.
Correct.
So, and that period of time, Marta, how does that as that gets shorter, how does that affect mortgages? What do you need to look for?
Massively. So the shorter the lease there, the more risk it is for the lender. So the value of the property with the short lease is so much lower than similar property with the longer lease. So the shorter the lease there.
If it goes below sort of, is it 80 or 60 years? It's something like
70
or
lower.
Then some lenders will start to drop out in that window. They'll say that's too much of a risk that because the value starts to drop. But there are ways to extend the lease. If you find a property you really fall in love with, it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but you should just get advice. And what's your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. When the term of the lease is below 85 years, I would say extend it.
Yeah.
Or if we have a client who is selling, advise him that there is a need to extend it unless the value will be much lower. Yeah, the lease can be extended. We had a new leasehold reform, which is a great piece of legislation for leasehold purchasers, because it can extend the term of the lease to even 999 years, remove the ground rent to zero, which is called peppercorn, which is a great advantage of that. So the government recognized that the lessees or people buying leases need protection. There is a...
So is that recent legislation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to be post my mortgage days. I can't remember.
It has. Yeah. But people I could see the benefits. All the new leases, you will see they have no ground rent anymore.
Wow.
A ground rent is one of the payment to the landlord.
Yeah.
Obviously, you will always have a service charge. That's the payment to maintain the building, because the landlord, so the freeholder, is responsible for the whole structure of the building, the roof, the foundation. So for some people...
So if you buy a flat and the roof breaks, why should it be only the person at the top that pays for the repair? So everyone in the building has to chip together and keep the structure of the property maintained. Correct. So
unless you buy masonette, the solicitors will check the lease for you. They will check whether there are all the basic protections under the lease, so that the landlord is maintaining the roof, is responsible for the whole maintenance of the structure of the building. If something of that is missing or there is no obligation who insures the property, we need a deed of variation. We need to change this. But yeah, that's the main thing.
So freehold is great because you own everything. Leasehold just needs to be looked at by a professional and get some advice, and it shouldn't be something to be scared of.
No. All sorts of properties is fine. You just need to understand what you're buying. That's all.
Nice. So what about instructing? So at what point, so we've on all the podcasts we've done so far in this series, we've always said clients should come in and speak to a broker like Marta as soon as possible. At what stage do they engage a solicitor and
once the mortgage broker arranges for the mortgage in principle and they have the offer accepted by the estate agent, that's the point when they should instruct solicitor. We received a lot of calls with clients who are still looking for property or their mortgage hasn't been approved. That's not the time. The solicitor starts the process when there is offer on the table. The solicitors will then be named in the memorandum of Sale. I was thinking of memorandum of staircase. Memorandum of sale.
Yeah.
And that's where we moved on.
Yeah. So, so they can look around, do their research, get recommendations, even get some quotes, but basically definitely. Wait until you've actually got an offer accepted on a house, you've got your mortgage agreed in principle or even started, and off you go.
Yeah, they can absolutely shop around to see who is recommended, whether any of their friends use the solicitors they were happy with, and then contact the solicitors for a quotation. The solicitors will explain the process of
how they onboard a client.
Correct.
So how do you onboard a client then? What's the next step?
We ask the clients to complete the initial form, giving us instructions. It's very straightforward, but at that point, the client is telling us where the monies towards the deposit are coming from, whether they have any additional properties, whether they're obtaining mortgage, who recommended the client to us, the information, or do they have gifted deposit? That's really important. We can capture this information at the beginning and then act on it. So once the client sends that form, we know they need mortgage. We haven't received that mortgage. They have a gift from family member. We can ask more question.
Yeah.
And they say the deposit is from savings, but we haven't seen them. We then start asking correct questions or right questions to give us information about the client's source of funds.
Great to hear, because we did a whole episode on deposits because it's such an important decision, such an important subject, and it can really stop a case dead if it comes to you and the deposit's not right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I'm just going to add that this is something that we also explain to our clients at the very initial stage, because very often they said, why do you need it? And we explain it that it's not just a mortgage lender, it's obviously then solicitors got a duty that they have to report it, the source of funds to the lender. So it's just kind of educating the clients, isn't it? And explaining that what is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So
that's right. And I think clients are quite reluctant to share information about their finances.
Especially parents.
Parents are very difficult in terms of sharing the information. That's right. But as a solicitor, we need to check their source of funds. And we also call it source of wealth. So we need a background. We need to know where the monies are from.
So it's not just it's coming from parents, but it's like, well, how did the parents accumulate that?
Yeah.
It might have been years of savings, but...
And in majority of cases it is, but sometimes the monies are just landing on their account and they don't want to tell us why.
Because they've moved it from one savings account to another, and you're like, well, how did it get to that? And
or they inherited.
Then you find out there's another pot somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's kind of common for brokers and solicitors.
Same battles.
Yes,
it is a battle.
So let's recap. So you've checked a deposit. They found a house. They've instructed you. You've checked all the deposit. You've done these searches.
That's right.
What the next step then is exchange of contracts. What's that actually mean?
Yeah, before I'm ready to exchange contracts, I need to also ask some questions. We call it inquiries.
Okay.
So we raised inquiries with the seller solicitors. They based on the deeds we received from them. So there is a title, there is a plan. If something is not quite clear, if there is a discrepancy, let's say on the contract, I could see this property is sold by John Smith, but on the register is Maureen Smith. It's not adding up. This seller has no right to sell, so I need to explore this more. It could be a question of a gap between the property and the main road and who owns this, and so there could be a lot of legal questions
going backwards and forwards between yourself acting for the first time buyer and the solicitor that's acting for the seller.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes the buyers, especially first-time buyers, naturally they will have lots of practical questions, even questions whether the alarm works at the property. We have lots of these answers in the property information form. That's a form completed by the seller. It's very useful, but we can ask extra questions. Some solicitors will say that's not a legal question, go back to the estate agents. and the estate agents are very useful in obtaining practical information about the property. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So that's inquiries.
That's inquiry stage.
Quite often we've got waiting for inquiries.
Yes.
How you getting on with your purchase? Waiting for inquiries.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So now we know.
It's a process, and it depends how quickly the solicitors will reply.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reply depends on their clients coming back to them. It takes time. With the leasehold properties, it's even more complicated because you need replies from third parties, landlords, management companies. Cancel sometimes.
Yeah, so it can be a slow process.
It can be a very slow process, and I know everybody's talking about a property transaction takes 8 to 12 weeks. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't. But ultimately, as I said at the beginning, we're buying the property you can sell. If I'm not comfortable with this property, because there are things that could be difficult in the future, then
you have a legal obligation, so that the buyer might not be that bothered about it, but you also have a legal obligation to the mortgage lender as well, don't you? So
I've got a client at the moment who are buying, it looks like a very straightforward property, but there is something called a rent charge. So not only there is a management charge or service charge on the estate, there is a rent charge, and it's £1 a year. It's nothing for this client.
Yeah.
They can afford it. It's not a problem with how big is what's the amount of the rent charge. It's the consequences of having a rent charge on the property. We now need to enter into the deed of variation to limit the rent charge owner's rights, who can actually put a lease on that property if rent charge is not paid. So it is a massive risk, and the lenders do not agree on that. I know it's very complicated issues, but what I'm trying to say...
a lender doesn't want a rental company or the landowner or whatever coming in and taking charge of repossessing and selling that, because they're the first charge. They want to be the boss, don't they? Make sure they get their money back.
Yeah. In short, it's a process, but we need to always consult with the lenders. We report to the lender a lot, and we need to have their straight answer. And quite often they will come back to us and say, no, we will not proceed until you enter into extra documents, extra deeds.
But the majority of time, we successfully get there.
We do.
We've done all the legal work. We've checked our deposit.
Correct.
What happens next? The next magical step.
Magical step is the exchange of contracts.
Yes.
Everyone's happy.
It is a happy time.
And what happens, Marta, at exchange of contracts? What do you need to make sure is in place?
Building insurance.
That's true. And then, like, how many times you had a question, I've got a building insurance, it's insured from the completion date. No,
it's not.
No,
it's from the exchange of contracts. Because legally there is no going back, isn't it? So
once you generally like because it's legal requirement, what you always like.
Or life insurance to go on risk as well.
As an advisor, it's
correct.
It's a good thing
just
to
in
do.
case if one of my clients would have, unfortunately, if anyone ever passed between exchange and completion, God forbid,
still has to buy it.
Yeah.
So
and. We do report to the clients that even though it's not a legal obligation, it's in their mortgage as recommended to obtain a life insurance as well as. The recommended is the must is the building insurance. On the exchange.
So exchange of contracts means that it all becomes legally binding and
That's
you
right.
get a moving date. So what actually happens on the day of completion from a first-time buyer's perspective? They're sat waiting by the phone. What happens? What's going on behind the scenes?
So after the exchange of contracts, we've got the set date for completion. We can then contact our client's lender, request the funds. We already have a deposit funds from the client, so we have monies to complete. On the day, we're just transferring the funds across. So we're sending monies from us, acting for the buyer, to the seller solicitors. Once the funds are received, they confirm to us that this transaction has now completed, and they will release the keys. The release of keys means that the buyer can go to the estate agents and collect the keys and move in.
Exciting times.
It is exciting.
And hopefully the seller's moved out.
Hopefully, the contract protects the buyer. So
Yeah.
we've got the contract has to stay clearly the property is sold with vacant possession, unless it's sold subject to tenancies. But we're talking about first-time buyers who wouldn't buy first investment property without having their first home. Normally, yeah.
And just to recap then, because Marta's been telling us all about 100% mortgages recently. How does it exchange? How do you complete with 100% mortgage? There's no deposit, right? You just...
Yeah, there is no deposit. We can agree that there is a zero deposit. The seller is still protected. The standard conditions of contract protect the seller. So if the buyer will decide not to proceed with this purchase on the completion date, the seller can recover the deposit up to 10%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So coming to a close then, what should a first-time buyer look for when they're choosing a solicitor? Because there's a difference in price between solicitors, isn't there? So
there is. Yeah.
Cheapest isn't always best, but so
no,
what's the difference?
Not. No, I think rely on recommendations. Ask your friends, family. Somebody will be buying or was buying in the past. It's important that your mortgage broker can recommend. Your estate agents may know somebody. Ask people around. Call the solicitor and ask for first impression. But really, just do your research before instructing somebody.
Marta, you're obviously pointing people in the direction of Marta's.
Yes, I do.
And a few other solicitors, because there's too many to pass to poor Marta. You'll be
inundated.
So what do you look for when you're recommending a solicitor? Why do you partner with Marta?
I quite like the solicitors that are contactable. So it is important that we as a brokers also have good contact with the solicitor, that we're able to pick up the phone. There are some certain situations that clients maybe not necessarily have enough knowledge or really haven't got time. So sometimes I quite like pick up the phone and talk to the solicitors. Also, what is important, and it becomes a bit of a problem, is the quotes. Sometimes when you receive them from solicitors, sometimes they don't include all the costs. So sometimes you did mention a cost of solicitor, and I think it's quite important when you do your research, ask for a quote that has got everything in it, if that makes sense. So there is no situation. I had a client that asked for couple of quotes, went with the cheapest, and then during the process he found out that there are additional costs that
what other hidden costs can be added in then to a quote, Marta?
Quite a lot. It depends on the solicitors how they structure this. Sometimes they will provide a quote, and in a small print they will say, however, there could be additional cost. It's just the client never reads the small print. But it could be additional indemnity policy. It could be additional deed of variation. Some solicitors will not disclose they charge for representing the lender or representing management company. They don't represent, contacting them, liaising with the management company. So there are the hidden costs that shouldn't be there. We have to be transparent, but not all solicitors are. Our quotes are transparent. If there is something additional, we just don't charge it. It's what it is. If there is a situation that we need to enter into the deed of variation, and we need to check this carefully, so like client didn't tell us they would want extend the terms of the lease, that is additional cost, but it will have to be communicated to the clients before the process starts.
Before they agree to it, and they can decide.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up then, have you got any the final top tips for first-time buyers when they're... Anything extra you can add?
I think that just surround yourself with people who can assist. So good mortgage broker, such as Marta, who knows the process of buying a property. find the right solicitors, rely on, contact your estate agents if you have questions, practical questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no silly questions.
That's interesting, because obviously it's all about communication, isn't it? And I think if you talk to the broker, if you talk to the estate agent, if you talk to your solicitor, if those people working together, I think it makes it so much easier, rather than having someone who's just not picking up the phone or not interested in talking to you. So
that's definitely my top tip, is make sure that you find a solicitor that's recommended, and part of the recommendation is how contactable are they, how quickly do they answer emails, how can you pick up the phone and talk to them, and that's key. So there we go. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And
it's a pleasure.
You can reach Marta through her social medias, and Marta will certainly be recommending Marta along with a few other solicitors and getting comparable quotes. But that is a summary of first-time buyers and what to look out for when you're buying a house, choosing a solicitor.
Lovely.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Marta.
Thank you.